Hello and welcome to Leviathan News. Today is May 17th, and we have a special guest on today. We have 0xtutti from JPEG'd DAO here to talk about a story that we discussed yesterday about the addition of Milady vaults. And we love the Miladies, so welcome, Tootie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so maybe you could run through what JPEG DAO is and what you guys have been releasing for your products over the past few weeks.
Right. So JPEG DAO is an NFT lending protocol. It has a twist. It's based on the MakerDAO model, meaning that users can come to us, deposit blue chip NFTs or any of the supported collections that the DAO votes for. And then in exchange, they can mint a synthetic asset. And from there, they can they can either swap it to their equivalent. So that means it's either a stablecoin called PUSD or PETH, which is a synthetic ETH token. And from there, they can do whatever they want. But there's also a twist with it, is that we're also one of the largest convex holders, meaning that we are voting on the pools that are used to be to swap the synthetic assets, and we can offer a very high yield on ETH and PETH right now. So the current yield is 30% on native ETH, basically, APY. So that's one of the things we do. We support many collections, going from CryptoPunks to Azukis, Bored Apes, Other Deeds, Autoglyphs as well, and a couple other art blocks collections. And we've released basically recently the Milady Vault. So for the first time, Miladies can also earn yield on their Miladies in ETH. And we also released the week before that peer-to-peer ape staking, meaning that users that have Bored Apes but don't have ape tokens, they can come on JPEG, they can earn yields using what we call the Citadel, which is this curve strategy in ETH, but at the same time, they can also find peers to co-stake ApeCoin tokens and then profit from the ApeCoin staking program. So basically, a double whammy.
Man,
And
very
it also
cool.
offers zero fees on the co-staking.
Very cool. I think so. I've been a fan of JPEG for a long time now, and it's cool to see like this kind of week coming together. There's two announcements, really, right? One is about the onboarding of new collateral, and like I would love to hear kind of your thoughts on how the DAO like approaches something like Miladies and decides to add them into the fold. And then secondly, what you're doing is like adding completely new functionality that allows, people to participate in the system that they literally couldn't before today with the 8-point staking. And so do you have any like thoughts on, kind of how that changes the game, and, also what other crypto systems are ripe for this kind of tool?
So about adding new collections, the way it works is, so we're a DAO, right? In the end, everything goes through voting, and collections are suggested and proposed by the community members or by the team when we feel that's something that could be interesting. But usually the community comes first. They're the ones begging for new votes and new opportunities to earn the yield. But there are a couple of things that are really important for us. Is one, the collection needs to have sufficient liquidity and volume, basically, in case of liquidation, because of the way the protocol is set up, basically the one taking the risk is the DAO. So we don't want to end up with bad debt, contrary to pool lending protocols where it's the liquidity providers that are actually taking on the risk. So we need proper liquidity. We also need to have the ability to run a Chainlink Oracle. So this is also really important, and we do this for all collections. And then we also have the ability to set a ceiling for each of the vaults for every collection. So we always launch a collection with a low ceiling, and then we raise it as the vault gets filled, basically. And then at some point, what happens is that because we're offering fixed interest rates for borrows, once the first vault is basically full and it has reached the max capacity that the DAO seems good for this collection, then a new vault opens with a higher interest rate. So that means that basically early users always get rewarded because users can come in early, borrow at 5% interest rate on ETH, and then earn 30% on that ETH, and basically just stay with us at all time.
Very cool. And then, do you have any other thoughts on like what are opportunities to deploy this ApeCoin staking functionality to other projects, or is that pretty unique to what ApeCoin is doing?
So I think right now it's pretty unique to what ApeCoin is doing because they have built their system in a way that NFTs don't need to be stuck in a contract. So we've been looking at collections like mood boards and decods, but basically the moment a user, as far as I know, the moment a user unstakes from their contract, they lose the points and the rewards or part of the rewards that they would win. So that creates a bit of a catch-22 where we're a bit stuck and we can't really offer that for other collections. But we're definitely always looking, and if there are such opportunities, then yeah, definitely it's something that we will integrate if we can.
Can I ask you something general, Tutti?
For sure.
JPEG was so early on part of NFTFi. Definitely the first NFTFi project I learned about over a year ago, I guess, with all kinds of interesting stuff for sure. How do you see today when there are at least a dozen more NFTFi projects? What really sets in your mind JPEG apart? And what's like how do you see your vision as different than many of the others within this whole spectrum of NFTFi projects? And where are you guys truly headed in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. The first one is we are the only one offering the protocol to peer lending. So we are the only ones that basically somehow we can scale in the same way that Maker has scaled because we don't depend on liquidity providers. So people can borrow and we mint more, and it's as much risk as the DAO can take. So this is, I think, one of the pluses of this model. The other one is we're the only ones that allow people to offer yield without depleting the treasury with their NFTs. So we're basically building on one of the foundation of DeFi, right, which is Curve. So this is something else. And then lastly, we have a very healthy treasury, and that treasury is not yet earning any yield, but it's something that that could happen. And then from there, basically, we can keep on building for as long as the bear lasts. So one of the things I think that puts us in a very good position is we can just keep on going for a long while before we run out of fun and run out of ideas. So we're actually pretty, I mean, I feel blessed to be working in such a project because, yeah, I don't see the end of it, which is really nice. And we can just keep on.
And also at the end, I will ask you about the JPEG cards. If what's next for JPEG cards? Still waiting about that.
Well, so JPEG cards. So we have a few things that make the protocol a bit more of a game. There are a couple of things that users can do, both with the JPEG token, which can be used to vote, but it can also be used to unlock new credit limit, new loan to value ratios, or also traits boosts, meaning that if you have a rare NFT, we actually value it at the at a multiple above the floor, depending on the traits that your NFT has. So this applies to punks, bored apes, not yet mutants, and then Adzukis are next. And then new multipliers can be added if the DAO votes for it. So this is one of the things. And then the cards, they were an NFT collection that was released slightly after the donation event. And what those cards do is the ones that have the cigarette attribute, they're actually pretty special. So there's 100 of them. And what they allow you to do, give you a 10% extra credit limit across all your positions. So compared to the LTV boost that we have, which is per position and means that users need to lock JPEG per each position, this one actually lets you get that extra boost across all your position, and that makes it really valuable, especially if you count that you are earning yield on your NFTs. It's something that just pays itself back, basically. But no plans for the non-sig cards.
Yeah.
For
So
now, I don't know. The DAO can imagine something.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
Also
What
had a
about
big
the
role in airdrop back then. Like it was a very meaningful airdrop.
Yep.
The JPEG airdrop for the card holders. I mean, the card stakers.
Yeah. That was run for 1 month. I forgot. It seems like so long ago already.
what about like new projects like the Llamas NFTs? How could they get listed?
So like every project, basically, they have to join the community. I think they also have to mint out. I'm not sure if they have minted out yet. And then we have to monitor the collection, see if the value of the collection stays high enough and for long enough, if there is enough liquidity as well. And then the DAO can propose it, and it could be made into a reality and become a vote, which would be pretty interesting. I must say, I miss the mint. So,
And how has the addition of other NFT exchanges like Blur helped with your lending protocol? Is that just tighten liquidity up and helped with liquidations?
so I think it's on our case, the liquidations happen via auctions, so we don't dump them on Blur or anything, and that's been working really well for now. Also, I think I might add, our users, they're actually pretty DeFi savvy, so they're all managing their collections pretty well. And as I said, they're also pretty sticky because they can earn this yield. I think like the fact that Blur added Blend, I think is really interesting because it's basically shown some light on NFT finance, and I think a lot of people are now looking at it in a different way. But I must say, I'm not really convinced in the value it brings to users the way they've set it up. My personal feeling is that lenders can get wrecked and borrowers can get wrecked because you can wake up the next morning with a new borrow rate that can be through the roof, right? Which is something, for example, with us, yeah, you can keep on sleeping and you know you wake up, it's still going to be 5%.
And so what's next on the roadmap for JPEG?
What's next on the roadmap? So there are a couple of things that we're working on. One that we're going to release today, which is a Telegram notification bot. So that means that you can track your positions or track your favorite whales positions on JPEG via Telegram. You get notification if the health is dropping too fast, which means if the floor of the collection is dropping too fast. If you get liquidated, but you have bought insurance, you also get a notification so you can get your NFT back. And if you have a boost expiring, you will also be receiving notifications the week before the boost is expiring. And as for what's next, we've got two big projects that we're working on. One is an NFT perp. So that will give you the ability to long and short NFT floors for selected collections as well. And also, we're working on adding the pool lending model as well to JPEG.
Well, that sounds great. Well, I really like the aesthetic of the website. It's very in the scene. So, thank you for coming on.
Wait, sorry, Sam. Before
Mm-hmm.
we pass move on, Tutti, can you just talk to us about where we can find JPEG on chain and if you have plans to move to L2s?
So for sure, JPEGs can be found on JPEG'd.io. We also have a Discord and a Medium and Twitter. Our Twitter is JPEG'd_69. About L2s, the door is definitely open. I think it's about also seeing if there are blue chip collections that actually start to exist on L2s, and then definitely that's something that could happen.
What about, sorry, I don't mean to continue to drag this out, but what about the like financialized products? Like, for example, perps on mainnet sound very expensive.
Well, there are like high chances that the NFT perp won't be on mainnet.
Mm-mm. Very cool. All right. Well, we'll stick around and keep an eye on JPEG.
Thank you.
That sounds very good. So moving on to some other news, we had the launch of DeFi protocol named Hourglass, which is formerly Pitch, which has moved into what I call the time lock space by NFTing or NFT tokenization of locked positions, so that if you enter into like a curve position or a frax lock position, pretty much anybody that uses a VE position, you're able to now tokenize that position and potentially sell it if you want to move out of it early, and somebody else can take on that duration.
Nice, interesting. We should have Charlie on at some point.
Yeah. And if you're eager to see an interview with Charlie, we did one with Flywheel a couple of weeks back, where we talked about the launch or the upcoming launch of Hourglass. So congrats to them for finally getting that out. Also in DeFi news, Harvest has launched the V3 of their platform. So Harvest is a auto compounder, but from what I remember. And they've updated the UI. They've done a bunch of other stuff. They got a partnership with Wido Labs and got some cool stuff. So probably worth checking out. And then also,
mainnet?
It's already launched now. So
I think it's also on Arbitrum and Polygon, so a few different chains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's necessary today. And also in the news, Tether announced that they are going to use up to 15% of their realized realized profits to go out and buy Bitcoin to be able to better bolster, I guess, their portfolio against what they think is coming inflation.
It's actually seems like big news.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me the fact that way back then, Doc One said that they're gonna start purchasing some Bitcoin to back it up, and then stuff quickly deteriorated.
Wow, the thing about the Do Kwon stuff was that they did not have anything backing that terror that they had. So Paul Andrino had a big post out today about like what company or excess reserves mean. Essentially, just is the profits that are retained from their interest income. So right now they have about $2.5 billion, and they are going to continue to use their interest income that they have from their operating profits to go out and buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, their most recent attestation report, which they issued for their Q1, was pretty funny because in it, like they were basically bragging about how their Q1 was better than companies like BlackRock. And essentially all they're doing, as far as we know, or as far as they're claiming, is they're just buying treasury bills, treasury assets with it. So just the effect of the rising interest rates has really given Tether a windfall.
Oh, yeah.
Which doesn't really make sense because like if they've been doing this the whole time, then they would be sitting on a bunch of treasuries and like as rates go up, they get creamed. So I don't know. Like look, it all comes down to how much you trust Tether, right? And like the reality is they're the only ones that have weathered all the storms. So whatever. And like personally, I think that it's like not necessarily big news that they're starting to buy Bitcoin. I mean, the reality is that like from Tether's perspective, if something happens to Bitcoin, like they have existential problems with their own business, so it doesn't really feel like taking on any additional risk, but like they believe in what we're doing here. And so like, why not have exposure to that upside?
Just based on their current circulating supply of Tether and how they would potentially use that cash to buy treasuries. Right now, they have $82 billion in market cap. They probably have, I don't know, $60 to $70 billion in short-term treasuries and a bit of cash on hand. So that means that they're probably making around, I don't know, $3.5 billion a year in interest income right now. And if they're using 15% of that, then that's going to be around $500 million of buy pressure that they can provide towards Bitcoin using this strategy.
And Bitcoin is touching 1 month lows since the news, so it doesn't seem as if the market is reacting jubilantly.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like that's not $500 million in Bitcoin is not a lot of money per year. Like that's negligible. So it shouldn't move the market. And I mean, I wish like if I were them.
I think it's more interesting from Tether's perspective because, of course, if we're in a bear market or things stay pukey, no big deal. But, say Bitcoin does hit 100K, like it could become a pretty sizable investment for him.
No, yeah. I mean, and if anyone's like positioned to take on like Michael Saylor for like corporate king of Bitcoin, it's Tether.
Yeah. How come none of them is buying Ether, to be honest? Like, how come no big entity like that is yet to start loading up on Ether? Seems more reasonable to me. Like,
I think it's more likely it's just that I think it's just more likely that Ether, like Bitcoin attracts like a very loud and very like ego-based personality, and like Michael Saylor's perfect, and I think that like he wouldn't necessarily like fit in with the ETH culture, and maybe like that's why we don't see the same kind of like stories come out, and we have our own like shit going on. I don't know, but I don't know. I promise
in
you,
my
big
opinion,
institutions are buying ETH. I promise you that, though.
Everybody is.
yeah, someone will start hearing about it sooner rather than later, in my opinion. Because obviously, like if we're here, just regular folks, and we see it, how long can it still be hidden from people with like actual huge amounts of money?
Yeah. So just to wrap up with one last story that we were talking about yesterday, there's been a lot of discourse on the Ledger situation and the news that they had yesterday about their Ledger recover. And while we talked about it yesterday, there was some more insight that was posted to Lobsters by a user called Amir Admi, who said he researched this situation quite a bit. And Garrett, if you could go to the group so we can read the rest of the thread, or I'll link it to your. Actually, we'll need to go because it's quite a long thread. But essentially, Amir goes through and he says that Ledger uses this standard called BIP32, which generates seed phrases on people's hardware wallets, right? And this allows people to generate their keys. Has a lot of entropy, so it's really hard to reproduce the same seed twice. The problem is that Trezor, who's run by Satoshi Labs, introduced a newer standard called BIP39, which allows for Shamir's secret sharing, which is the process that we talked about yesterday, where you can split your keys up into multiple parts and then share them with different people. And then when you combine those keys again, you're able to recreate your seed phrase. So Ledger had been, Amir says that Ledger had been getting a lot of comments about like why hadn't they integrated BIP39, and really the issue is that like BIP32 is not upgradable to 39. You just cannot use it's a different derivation path. You're not going to get the same set of wallets. It's just harder to use. So that left him, he said, with two issues, right? The first one is that they could just redo their entire derivation paths, force everybody to generate new seeds, but that kind of screws everybody over who already has the wallet already. It's not really that good of a situation. The second one is to go out and just add a second kind of use of BIP39. So where you have BIP32 on device, but then you also have a way to create BIP39 version with the original seeds, so that it can be used for Samir secret sharing. And this is kind of what they did with the with Ledger Recover. So they have your device, you sign up, you create your seeds, but it also now creates when you opt in a Samir secret or BIP39 key that can be split up, and then they send it off to three entities, which is Ledger, CoinCover, and then I believe the third one was called like something escrow. And that was, I mean, for like normies who don't have a lot of money, it's probably a decent thing. But they kind of screwed up on the PR front, where they just announced this. A lot of people are very distrustful of Ledger already because of the hacks, and they just screwed up on every level. So his like kind of endpoints that he came to at the end was like, if you don't opt in, there's no BIP39 backup of your seed. It just doesn't exist. So there's like nothing that can be stolen. If you do sign up, every single interaction requires your PIN, and without your PIN, you can't put back together the three pieces. And so when Ledger takes your new BIP39 seed generator or seed generation and then sends it off to the three entities, they obviously could put it back together, but they can only like try to put it back together once you have your PIN. They get 3 tries just like you do, and then the whole thing is bricked. And yeah, so there's a couple more things about it. I mean, I know I saw some other people doing some security analysis, like actually breaking open the ledgers and trying to understand the secure enclave a bit more. But honestly, they need to look at their PR strategy again and listen to the community and come back and probably maybe release a new device that just has this, or kind of put this on the back shelf going forward.
I mean, I just think that this is like a reflection, like a reminder that like most people in this space don't really understand the cryptography going on here. Yeah, I mean, of course, at the end of the day, like the responsibility to communicate your ideas is on Ledger, but like the reason that they messed up so bad, in my opinion, is because like this is not really a controversial thing, and it's like an opt-in thing. And if you understand the cryptography, like there's just so much misinformation and just like people running wild. Like, for example, what you just said is that if like these other companies try to use your PIN more than 3 times, it deletes it forever. Like, maybe that's not how that's not how it works, you know? Like, and I think that like at the end of the day, like this is going to cost Ledger a shit ton of customers, just like the hack did. And we're all going to go to like Trezor, which is having its own like little like meltdown too. And I just like, at the end of the day, like it's sad that this institution that like we believe to hold our private keys is like receiving this flack, fairly or not, which I think is unfairly. But as like a user, it's a scary time to be in this industry once again.
So I think the issue is like the 3 so I have my own issues, right? So 2 of the 3 that are being used to store the keys are US based companies, or like within Five Eyes, right? Which is like US, UK, New Zealand, whatever. So potentially US law enforcement or a group of Five Eyes law enforcement could force these companies to turn over all of the keys to the government, right? Additionally, they're also collecting all the data on the devices. If you use your like Ledger wallet as well too, like the actual official software, they're also collecting all that data as well too. And once they have your KYC information, it now becomes trivial to pair the wallet.
That's always been the case with them.
No, I don't think so.
What do you mean? Like they definitely have my KYC information when I bought my stuff on their website, and they definitely know which device is mine based on my like use of Ledger Live.
Well, you don't have to use Ledger Live.
Yeah, but you don't after this either.
No, I mean like it's just there's a lot of information. I think the security assumptions go from, you know, here's a device, you have your own keys, to like, here's a device, now somebody else with your passport or could, you know, generate a.
But only if you opt in.
Yes, only if you opt in.
So like that's a feature that is like a service that some people might like want, and like the community's reaction shouldn't be like, "Fuck you assholes for making like a paid service that we don't have to use."
I think it just comes back to the like what you buy a hardware wallet thinking about it versus, you know, what's actually being delivered in the code.
Yeah, and so I think my takeaway from all of this is we need to learn more about the cryptography that's underlying like the things that we're doing. And not your keys, not your crypto is like part of that is understanding what keys are and like what the distinction is and all of this stuff. And so look, I'm not financial advice, not private keys advice, not whatever, but like let's just be like a little bit more sober in the way that we like go after Ledger for like creating a feature of convenience that a lot of people want.
Well, if you are interested in securing your keys, we did post yesterday an article by Officer CIA, who is a friend of the show, and does post some stuff in Leviathan sometimes. He has a wonderful Substack article about the only safe way to store crypto, which is very, very, very comprehensive about like all the different ways that you can store your keys, some of the issues with all of them, what cold wallets are, what hot wallets are, and then talking about just different ways that you can protect yourself. So this is definitely a article that you should look at. He's like sourced everything very well. He's linked everything very well, and I don't think that you're going to find a better way to figure out your own way of storing keys other than this guide. So it's well worth the read.
Can we address for a second some of the comments on the chat? I think it's kind of interesting. Ryan C says, why not just launch a new product that does that instead of compromising all of our ledgers? Like, is the truth in that from what you guys know? Like, is the simple fact that they're launching it on the existing product instead of launching a new one, is that causing some kind of compromise that puts us, the old users with the old ledgers, in a position in which we should either we should actively do something in order to protect something that at the moment we should not be thinking about protecting? Do you get what I'm saying?
I think it just becomes a lot of double work after that. Like you have the same device, but now you have two firmware.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, can you upgrade the firmware or can you not? And if you can, then like you're like what they did now is a special upgrade that says like, okay, we're never going to allow the private key to leave, but we are going to allow this new set of mathematical transformation that is called Shamir fiat, like key splitting, right? And so in the future, there's like if you can upgrade the firmware, there's no reason they can't just send it out in plain text to Twitter, or like that. That's
that's not the case. I mean, so the secure enclave that they're using is the same thing that you use with your like credit cards, right? So like this chip here, this little chip here, that's also a secure enclave as well too. And so like all of your private data is kept within that. And there's it's a special piece of hardware where in this case, the firmware can be upgraded. There's also some other like internal services which can also be upgraded around. But the keys should stay within that secure enclave. And that's why the Ledger device is a closed source product. And I think this is one of the issues which was brought up about the Ledger upgrade, is that like unlike the Trezor system, which is fully open source and pushes a lot of that encryption and computation into the MPU, with the Ledger, you're essentially going on the promises of the Ledger and their use of this secure enclave technology to say that, it is safe. It is, not letting your keys out. And, you really just have to trust the company on that, because they've not open sourced the software, and there's parts of the hardware which are not open source as well too.
All I'm saying is that if you can add three-way splitting of the key, you can add one-way splitting of the key, or just send the three different things to a single unit, right? The point is that if you can, it's just like smart contracts. If you can upgrade like the code, then you're not like secure in perpetuity.
Yeah. So I think there will be there is already fallout from this, and like you can look at the recommendations also on Officer CIA's blog about which the different variations of hardware wallets that you can use and what some of the other options are. So I don't know about what you guys use, like Trezor.
I mean, I use a Ledger.
You use Ledger. So I use a Grid Plus. I like it a lot. I think a lot of other people like Grid Pluses as well too. But it is big and bulky. Trezors are great as well too. But there's also like other air gapped wallets as well. I've seen some new ones which look pretty cool and have some great functionality. So yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of variations out there. If you're worried about the Ledger issue, it's quite easy to switch. So
yeah, but also if you have addresses that has like locked position, I'm not sure it's that easy to switch. Like for example, if I have if you're a VCRV holder and your stuff is held onto a specific account for years to go, then what happens on that case? You still have to, even if you do open a new account with a new wallet, you should always know that once that position is liquid again, you have to do it exactly on time or lock it. It's not that simple, but again, we're a very young industry, and all this kind of stuff comes with the great opportunity. Comes all these stuff.
Yeah, I think again, like a lot of people in the industry are just kind of freaked out in general by anybody knowing any information about them. I mean, like there's been many instances of people getting wrench attacked or kidnapped, and just on data leaks alone, right? I mean, I saw yesterday this story about this I believe he's like Swedish or I believe it's Swedish. So somewhere in the Nordic area, you have to publish they make all the tax returns of everyone public. And that's great. It may lead to good transparency, but if you're holding a lot of crypto, you immediately get put on blast, right? And so he had actually been kidnapped, and he's still kidnapped, and they're looking for him because the attackers saw that he had, I don't know, several $1 million, tens of millions of dollars of crypto that he claimed taxes on last year, and they just came to his house and took him. So some scary stuff. Most people in crypto want to stay anonymous and don't want to actually like share this type of information. So
yeah, and when we're talking about private keys, this isn't even a wrench attack issue. This is like your keys. Your keys are your crypto. So
well, I think that's a good place to wrap up on. We went a little bit long today, but thank you everybody for tuning in. Today is May 17th, and we are Leviathan News. Tutti, thanks so much for joining the show today. We really had you on. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah. You can see all of our Twitter feeds here. You can find us at Leviathan News pretty much everywhere. Make sure to subscribe and like and follow us and share us around. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. And actually, we have another interview that we're doing later today. Garrett or Rex, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so there's a great Twitter account that I've been following for a bit called Back the Bunny. Back the Bunny has done some very entertaining threads on a number of different topics, also runs their own, I believe, perpetual protocol. They did a good thread on Milady culture, so we thought, given that it was in the news, it'd be a great time to have him on to talk about just sort of anything. Rex, anything you want to add?
No, as you can tell, I'm in a hotel right now and will be traveling at the time, so I will miss you guys. But I do think it's worth just like understanding what's going on in this Milady moment right now. So thank you so much, Tutti, and looking forward to catching up on the interview.
Well, Milady. See you guys tomorrow.
And don't get JPEGs.
And JPEG.
May the Milady bless you.
Yes, may the Milady bless you.